Yay, we're recording again. Lindsay Dragon
Yay.
with Parenting Autism United with Brooke Gold from Golden Opportunities. And tonight we're chatting about biting the bullet. And this is going to be a good one. One that everyone, this is in regular day-to-day life. So we're going to share a screen here. Actually, yes, I'm going to bring up, I have your presentation.
Okay.
Right here. And sorry, 1 second. I'm just gonna, there we go. And I did not share the screen yet, did I? Or did I?
Not that I can see.
All right. So let's go back here. So we are now going to share screen. All right. And Brooke, when you're ready for me to go to the next slide, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. There it is. It's up here. All right. Can you see that now?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So, alrighty, here we go.
Alrighty. Okay, so we are back with another training topic provided by Parenting Autism United. Today we're going to be talking about tackling big and little changes. So for this topic, it's going to be very individualized. So every individual and every situation is going to be addressed a little bit differently. So this is more a generic understanding of how to address changes, and also what's happened if those changes don't happen the way you want them to. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to relay them to Lindsay. You can also email myself. I did not include my email address, but it's goldenopportunities.aba@gmail. And you can give me all of your information about what is going on, what is your situation, what is your individual like, and I can help you come up with a more tailored plan. But for today, it's really generic, and we're always open to talk about more specifics with you.
Wonderful.
So our first slide, we're going to talk about the problem with change. Why is change so hard for certain individuals, and how can we make it easier? So a common characteristic of autism is difficulty with changes, and those changes can be either a change in activity, it could be a change in location, it could be a change in routine, or it could be a change in plans. And so that occurs all day, every day with anyone and everyone. I know today I had a list of a couple chores and errands to run, and I had to move my plans around a couple times today because I was running behind or something new popped up that I had to address immediately. So I dealt with several changes just today. But if we understand an individual's needed support and their coping strategies, we are able to maintain the individual's well-being during a challenging change. So every person has different triggers, things that upset them or stress them out. At the same time, we all have our different coping strategies. What works for me may not work for Lindsay. What works for Lindsay may not work for those who are listening. That's okay. We don't want an one-fits-all solution, but we do want the understanding that one situation may be solved one way, another situation may be solved another way. An individual may need one coping strategy today, but a completely different coping strategy tomorrow. It all depends situation by situation.
Yep.
But absolutely. But the important part is that we have support available and that we are maintaining the safety and well-being of those who are going through a difficult change. So if a change is upcoming and we know it's upcoming, if we know there's a doctor's appointment occurring in a week, okay, we have a week to plan for the doctor's appointment. Let's talk about it. Let's plan about it. And let's practice as much as possible before that change occurs. And so on our next slide, which we're about to go to, we're going to talk about some basic techniques that we use, or I use, to prepare my clients for change. So preparing for change, again, it's going to be individual. Similar to individual challenges with change, an individual's preferred preparation for change is going to vary between individuals and between those situations. So these three are the top methods that I use to prepare my clients for big and little changes. They're generic, they're all tailored to the individual situation, but these are just a generic guideline for our families to look about, think about, and maybe follow with. So the
And
first
Brooke,
we have, yes.
one of the things that families and parents need to understand is that
Mhm.
a lot of times they're lost and they just don't know where to start. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of what we're able to do together is to just give them the starting point.
Mhm.
And then they can fill in all their blanks with the things that, is affecting their families in their own way. So these
Mhm.
are the bones
Yes.
to building, the building or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So thank you again. And this I'm really excited to see what you have here.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this is your first time joining us for one of these trainings, most of these are very generic. Like Lindsay said, it's just a starting point. We want you to have some tools in your toolbox in order to address the problems that you're facing. Ideally, if you're able to get services and support, we want you to take advantage of that. But until you get those services and support, here's something to start off with. You can absolutely reach out and get more specific information, but at least you have something to start with. So like I mentioned before, these are the top three that I use with my clients to prepare them for any changes upcoming that I know is upcoming or something that happened in the moment and I need to prepare them for the sudden change. So the top three techniques that I use, I call them prepare, plan, and practice. We're going to go into more detail about them in the next slide, but generically speaking, prepare is just talking about it. Let's make sure we are prepped and ready to go for the situation. Plan is actually coming up with a plan. What do I need? What do I not need? Is everything available? So if I do need them, I can grab them to help me get through this difficult change. And practice, pretty much role playing. Are you able to practice the skills you need or practice a scenario you're going to be in order to make it an easier change for yourself? You can practice what goes right, what goes wrong, and hopefully when you're in the moment, performing that change, it'll be a little bit easier because you had some practice before.
Yeah. There we go. I figured out how
All
to
right,
use the full screen.
perfect. So the next one, I call it the three P's for change. Same thing, prepare, plan, and practice. What I also have on this slide is two different examples of what preparedness can look like for two different individuals. I have two different options for planning for two different individuals. I have two different practices for two different individuals. Again, these are all very generic, but I want you to see how preparing can look differently between two different examples. So it may look very different compared to you, compared to me, and that's okay. It's all going to be nuanced depending on situations and individuals. So the first one, the first prepare on the top left-hand side, I have prepare. So knowledge is power. For some individuals, just understanding the change before it occurs can make that change easier to undercut. Oh, I'm going to repeat that because I did not sound right. Prepare. So knowledge is power. For some individuals, understanding the change before it happens may make the change easier to overcome. So we want to talk about the change and we want the individual to learn as much information about it as possible before the change occurs. So what this could be changing schools. It is a big change that is out of our control, but we can talk about it. You are in elementary school. We are going to have a 3-month summer break, and then we're going to go to middle school. Here's a picture of the middle school. Let's drive to the middle school. Let me answer all of your questions about middle school and how it's different from elementary school. You're just talking and providing as much information as possible to make the change seem more attainable.
Mhm.
You don't feel as scared because you know what's going to happen. Even though you're just talking, you're definitely preparing for that big change that's coming up. So talk about the change to learn more about it. Allow your individual, if that's your child, if that's your best friend, if that is yourself going through a change in the near future, talk about it. Prepare for what's going to happen. On the right-hand side, another prepare, there's a technique in the ABA world called priming. And is essentially just saying, this is about to happen. I am telling you before it happens, it's about to happen. And I'm going to slowly count down and get you ready for what's about to happen.
This might
And
be
some
for, like, if you knew a fire drill was coming or
exactly.
if you're at the hibachi restaurant and they're about to do the
Mhm.
fire.
Exactly. So this would be great for smaller changes that you know are going to happen, but you may not have all the details figured out. So, for
Right.
example, the hibachi restaurant, when they're about to do the fun onion volcano, okay, talk to your individual. All right, we're getting our food. They're pulling out the vegetables now, so they will be pulling out the onion soon, which is going to cause a big fire. As
Right.
you see them pulling out the onion, maybe nudge them. Okay, they're getting the oil out. They're going to pour it in, and it's going to make the big flame. Get ready. It's going to be hot. It's going to be bright, but then it'll be over. So they're
Right.
just small, gentle, and consistent reminders about the change that is coming up. And sometimes this is all an individual needs. Typically, I see more success with priming and this type of preparedness with a small change that's coming up pretty quickly, but you can still generally time out when it's going to happen.
And
The
that's
first
because
example,
you have less time to like
mm-hmm,
overthink it, right? On both
yeah,
parts.
yep, you have less time to overthink it, you have less time to get information, but you can still keep giving them warm ups that, hey, it's coming. It's getting a
Right.
little bit closer. It's like a hot and cold game that you're playing. Here's what's happening now. We're getting closer to the main event. It is about to happen. The main event is happening.
Wonderful.
So the next P I have is plan. So this is going to involve some planning. This is going to involve a little bit more than just talking about what's happening or what is going to happen. So on the left-hand side, we have planning in the way of walking through the change. So it's a little bit more detailed than prepared, where you're just talking about it. This one, you're discussing what the change is going to look like compared to what it is right now. And you're also going to make a game plan. So that may mean a to-do list. It is, I need all of these things in order to be prepared and plan for the upcoming change. So this could be you're going to the grocery store today at 3 o'clock. We know the grocery store is overwhelming and overstimulating to some individuals. So let's make a plan to tackle the grocery store. I
Mhm.
need these materials and I need to bring them with me. I need to set a timer to only be in the grocery store for 35 minutes. I know that that is the most I can handle. And so you're creating a plan with action steps. It's a step more than discussing, and you're having activities available, you're having items available to make sure that in the moment you are good to go. On the right
Yeah.
hand side, similar situation where there is no such thing as being over prepared. Create the plan in order to tackle your change. So have those resources available, make sure you have them available before, during, and after, and also make sure you have a plan in case things go wrong. If you did bring all of your materials to the grocery store, you knew what to do before and during, but during there is an accident on the dairy aisle and you have to go get milk, but you can't because it's completely filled up. There's an accident, something's going on, and you just can't get there. So your plan is falling apart. You can't go to the dairy aisle, which was written down in your plan. You have all of your support and needs available, but you still can't perform your plan as you planned it out to be. So this
Right.
may mean the plan fails. Maybe we don't get milk today. Maybe we try to come back tomorrow, replan, and just get milk tomorrow. Maybe we wait. It doesn't matter what your change is, but you are making a change, possibly in the moment, or you're just saying, you know what, this plan did not work. I want to take what I have and go and try again and come up with a new plan.
And Brooke, is it possible when you're putting together the plan, you
Mm-hmm,
can put in there like surprise, something is different or something along those
mm-hmm,
lines. That way they can see that it's a possibility
mm-hmm,
and you may or may not have that. And
mm-hmm,
who knows where it would fall in. But I know sometimes scheduling change is one thing, but you
mm-hmm.
can't schedule a surprise, but you can also prepare for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we talked about that a little bit later, where we
Okay.
kind of focus on failures because failure is going to happen with changes. That's okay. But yes, you can absolutely prepare to have those surprise things. Things happen all the time, and you can absolutely prepare for it. So if you are in the prepared stage where you're really just talking about what's going on and what those changes are going to be, throw in a surprise and be like, well, what happens if there is a fire alarm when you were supposed to tour the school? What can you
Mhm.
do? And you can just talk about it. You're not in the moment experiencing it, but you are talking about it, figuring out what plan could you have in that moment. Are you able to create a plan in the moment to make yourself safe and comfortable?
Right.
Same thing with plan. Add that extra step in of something didn't go my way. What can I do? Start
Like they
planning.
didn't have my flavor of fruit
Mm-hmm.
snacks. Like,
Exactly. And that can throw off an entire plan. But that's
yeah,
okay if you have it built in of, okay, this didn't go my way. How can I plan for this mistake or this error to happen in the future? Take the
right.
opportunity, take the failures that you have and learn from it to make a better plan.
Got it.
The next one I have, the last P for changes is practice. So this is just a step above the other two in which you are actually performing the skill. So essentially think of practice as role play. It's a little bit more intensive, but individuals with autism may benefit more from this type of practice than the others because you are actively practicing it. And if you mess up, then there's moments for you to correct it before moving on. For practice, we understand that not everything can be practiced perfectly.
Right.
So for the left-hand side practice, let's say he's getting ready to fly on an airplane for his first time. That is something that you can't just walk up to an airplane, sit down, and practice taking off and landing. That's
Right.
not possible for a lot of individuals. But can you set up a row of chairs in your living room, kind of have them spaced out like they would be in an airplane, maybe have the sounds, maybe have a simulator on like YouTube so that we can see kind of what it looks like, hear the sounds of it, and you are practicing it as close as you can to be prepared for the big change when it happens.
Yeah.
No, it's not perfect. It's not the same thing, but you are practicing it and you're getting comfortable with some similarities. And you're also still getting more information about what the real experience, what that real change is going to look like. But at least here, you're practicing it.
This is a huge thing. I mean, obviously for flights too, but also for
Mm-hmm.
medical attention.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's a huge thing is to practice. And anytime you can get your hands on like the actual tools, like the dental,
Yeah.
tools, they make several of the play sets, but you can also
Mm-hmm.
buy a very generic, cheap plastic set that you could use yourself. But just
Mm-hmm.
to take away that fear, same thing with ears and otoscope and things along those lines. And now they have um, like Play-Doh surgery type things. It's
Mm-hmm.
very weird to see it and see children using it. But
Yeah.
everything does exist is
Yes.
for that practicing,
Yeah.
whether you're simulating it or you can find some pieces to make it a little more realistic as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So get those materials if you need them. They do make a lot of fun toys that you can
Mhm.
use to teach the skills and practice skills, even if you don't have the operational or surgery tools. That's okay. You have the fun ones that you can play with and make it less scary and make it a little bit more real when you go into the real situation. So, Lindsay,
Yeah.
I'm going to have you go back one more slide. I
Oh,
have one more
sorry.
box to do. You're okay. Okay, so my last practice is breaking down a really big, complicated skill into smaller pieces. So
Oh,
in the field, we call this chaining, but essentially it is teaching one skill, mastering the one skill before building up a bigger skill. And then once you master skill one and skill two, you add in the third skill. And so essentially you're practicing, but you're practicing one step at a time to be comfortable and confident in creating the full skill. So this would be
that's
a
cool.
great, yeah, so this one would be great for a complicated skill like job interviewing. You can absolutely work on job interviewing as just a one-time practice, but that one's very hard. Every interview is going to look different, it's going to have different questions, it's going to flow differently, and there's really no way to prepare for a specific interview. You have to prepare for the entire big, complicated skill. So,
Right.
if we want to practice and break interview skills down, we could start with just greetings, social greetings. What do you do when you see someone new that you've never talked to before? Quick exchange. Hi, how are you? My name is Brooke. This is my job description, or this is my title. That is the first step. You just learn how to do professional greetings. And once you're doing that consistently, confidently, then let's move on to a summary of your resume. That tends to be what happens in interviews. You do a quick social interaction, then they ask you to walk them through your resume. So maybe we teach our kiddos to do social skills and then work on resume. Once those two are mastered and consistent, maybe we jump into scenario-based questions where there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just going to make up a scenario and ask you about it. Are you able to kind of problem solve through that problem in that question and give a cohesive answer? And you just keep building those smaller and smaller skills until they're able to do a full job interview without any concerns or issues, because they practice small skills over small skills over small skills that built up into the big one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So these are my 3 P's: prepare, plan, practice.
I keep jumping. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay, so our next one is, what if we don't change? So this is just more of a thought piece for everyone and for you guys to think about, why is it so important to tackle these really tough changes? So think about it. What would happen if your parents decided diapers would be easier than changing into underwear? What if they decided, nope, that's too complicated, that's too big of a change, we're just going to stick to diapers, they work, we'll be fine? How much different would your life be if you were at your current age and your parents decided for you that you're not going to move on to underwear? You're still in diapers at your current age. What is your life going to look like? What experiences did you miss out on, or do you think you could have missed out on because of that one factor and that one change you never made in your life? So if we're thinking about this, our life's going to look completely different. So why is it any different than an individual who has a change upcoming that we're trying to avoid because we don't want to have the challenge of a change? Well, we want them to go through those changes. Yes, it's going to be hard. And yes, it may take multiple times to get through it, but that's okay. We're looking for the long term, the big picture of what happens if we're able to get through this one little change. How much different is their life going to look like?
And Brooke, am I right in saying that it's just getting over that initial fear
Yes. It's
of,
about getting over the initial fear. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well, about what happens when we fail and why overcoming that failure is so important.
okay.
So bouncing back on to, what if we don't change? Having a diagnosis doesn't mean that the world shuts down around you. Yes, having a diagnosis can make life a little bit harder than your neurotypical peers, but that doesn't mean that it is impossible. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that it's going to look a little bit different than someone else. And that's okay. You can still absolutely tackle any change, any challenge that comes your way. When you have those correct supports and the understanding, anything is possible. Diagnosis or no diagnosis, anything is possible.
Yeah, and that's super important to say, diagnosis or no diagnosis, because there's a lot of, things you can add on to probably a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, but there's really
Yeah.
nothing that you can do for them.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a magic pill that you could take. I mean, we're dealing with oppositional defiance disorder, but we could get the diagnosis for it because it's there, but there's nothing else
Mm-hmm.
left to do. We're already doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of fighting to get a diagnosis that there's nothing you can do for it, um, making these small changes are things that we can just simply do at home
Mm-hmm.
without even ABA therapy. As a parent, you have to make these life changes for yourselves, for the
Yeah.
whole group. But okay.
Absolutely. And another thing that I do with my trainings is, yes, they are tailored towards individuals and caretakers of individuals with autism. However, it doesn't mean that because you don't have a diagnosis, you can't use these tips and tricks. You absolutely
Oh
can.
yeah.
I try to tailor them towards autism. However, I can pick up any of these skills and use them. And just because I don't have a diagnosis doesn't mean I can't use them or benefit from them. These are great for parents and grandparents and friends of individuals with autism. They're great for individuals with autism because they're not so specific that you need a diagnosis in order to take this training. You don't.
Yeah.
It's open to anyone and everyone with all various abilities, because we can
Yeah.
all learn and we can all be better. And we all go through changes every single day. I'm going through a big change in the next month or two. And that's
Right.
something I'm preparing for. And I'm using the skills and techniques I have from my job in ABA to make that change better and easier for myself. But that doesn't mean it's not hard. It absolutely is.
Well, and at some point, I feel like with any major change, there's that moment of everything's is spiraling.
Mhm.
So that's where we're going heading into, I think, right?
Yep, we've got about 2 or 3 slides and then we'll be there.
Okay.
All right, so we'll
We're
move on
ready
to
for
the
the next
next
one?
slide.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so the next one is just understanding that overcoming a challenge, overcoming a change, is going to be step by step. It doesn't happen all at once. So the first step is just understanding and identifying what the change is and what challenges can occur before the change occurs. So if you know in a week you have a doctor's appointment, okay, you know the change. What are some potential challenges that you're going to deal with when you go to that doctor's appointment? Just be aware of it. And then step 2 is creating a plan to address the specific situation, the specific challenges of the individual, or the specific challenges of the situation, or both. Come up with a plan that is tailored to the individual and the situation to make them happy, healthy, and getting through the challenge as easily as possible. The third part of it is just having those needed supports readily available. So if you know that you are going to be waiting for extended periods of time, have something that's going to keep you entertained. A lot of us play on our phones. Great.
Mhm.
That keeps us entertained while we're waiting an hour and a half at a doctor's appointment that we were supposed to be in 30 minutes ago.
Yep.
If something is too loud or too bright, bring in sensory reducers, headphones, glasses, a hat, any supports that are going to make the change and enduring the change easier for the person. And then step 4 is just going through the change. It's time. It's time for the change. You created a plan to address the change while supporting yourself or the individual experiencing the change. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 step process. Identify, come up with a plan, have everything you need readily available, and then 4, enact that change. And so the next slide is going to be talking about what happens if our plans fail. What happens when we run into failure? So what if
It's
it
gonna
fails?
happen.
It's going to happen, and if you fail, it is okay. It's okay. It failed. No big deal. Use the failure as a learning opportunity to create a better plan. What did you forget about? What could have been done better? What supports were needed that maybe you didn't think about and you really could have used in that certain situation or certain change? And it's only a failure when we give up. Plans may change, but
Right.
the goal remains the same. It's okay if we change our plans, but we're still working towards the same goal. We may spend 10 minutes coming up with a plan and it works perfectly. We may spend 13 hours working on a plan and nothing works at all. That's okay.
Right?
Take that failure to figure out what worked, what didn't work, come up with a better plan, and then try the change again. It's okay if it failed. It's okay if you have to practice it again and again and again. Just don't give
Well,
up.
I think a lot of individuals, on the spectrum and just in life in general too,
Mhm.
the anxiety that comes with failing
Yeah.
and, just not understanding that the world is not going to end,
Mhm.
is a big deal. So, that's everyone everywhere, I feel. I've come across that.
Absolutely. And so our next slide, we're going to talk about why failing is actually important.
All right. Here we
So
go.
this is from a much longer article on psychology about why failure is important. So I just pulled 5 out of the 10 lists that I felt were really important to this specific training and for most of the people who are going to be interacting with this training.
Okay.
So part of failure is that our mind will take that failure and think that the goal is less attainable because we failed. It's not less attainable. Nothing changed with the goal other than you failed and your brain is telling you, okay, this is a lot harder than you thought it was going to be. That's what our body does. That's what our mind does. And it's okay. It's just our mind making it harder for us and playing tricks on us. The failure made it seem less attainable, but nothing changed. It's just your mind playing tricks on you. Ignore it, try it again. And so when we do fail, even one failure can bring in a subconscious fear of failure where we don't try, we're too scared to try, so we don't. We stay stagnant because we're too scared to try something new. Or subconsciously, we could be self-sabotaging ourselves and causing us to fail when we very easily could have met that challenge.
Yes. I see that.
Again, it's subconscious, it's psychology, it's our mind playing tricks on us. The goal did not change. We experience a failure, so our body and our mind is telling us it's too hard, but it's not. We just have to try it again. Another thing is that fear of failure can be passed down. Typically, we see this with parents being afraid of one thing, and then their children are afraid of the same thing. Even though the children have not experienced anything or have not experienced the same failure that their parents have, they still pick up on that failure. You can also pass this failure to anyone else close to you. If you're always talking to your best friend about, I failed at this, I failed at this, I failed at this, they may start picking up on that failure and then have that fear because they're experiencing it through you.
We see this a lot in the office.
We do see this a lot. Yes, we see it a lot. And again, it's just our mind and our body playing tricks on us. The goal is still the same. We failed, so now we're scared of it. And now we're kind of sharing that fear of failure with those really closely around us.
Yeah.
So the last two are tailored more towards overcoming failure. So one thing that we see is that when you fail, you do tend to get some anxiety about failing again. Sometimes those anxieties become too much to where you're always self-sabotaging. You have that subconscious fear of failure, and so you stop trying. If you see that you're getting to that point where it's just too hard to try and possibly fail again, take a break. It's okay. If we are trying really hard at learning a new skill, but we're becoming so overwhelmed with learning the new skill that we're not making any progress, we're not learning, and we're just suffering more, then okay, take a break. It does not hurt to take a break. It may alter your timeline. It may be a little disappointing, but it's okay. That goal is still there. You can still reach that goal. But right now, we need to take a little break, come back to it when we're ready. And that's going to look different for everyone. But it's okay. Understanding when you've hit your limit and you can't go past it, that's an important skill to learn. And that's an important skill for our individual autism to learn as well. Failure is normal. Everyone who's listening to this has gone through a failure. And it's going to go through a failure probably this week. That's okay. Failure is important for learning and growth. The last thing is that the healthiest response to failure is to focus on the controllable variables. So your plan failed. Okay, it failed. Good to know. What worked? What didn't work? And what is in my control to change? Could I have left the house 5 minutes earlier? Could I have had a bigger breakfast so I wasn't starving during my job interview and moody? What could you have changed? There's things that you can't change. You can't change traffic, but you can change what time you leave to. Exactly. You can't change the weather, but you can bring an umbrella or a blanket or whatever you need to overcome the elements.
Right.
So if you fail, think about what you can change and act on the things that you can change. Don't stress about the things you can't change. Focus on the things that you can change and try again when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a huge thing. I mean, people are just get frozen with and they don't move.
Absolutely. And failure is scary. We understand that. But everyone's a failure at some point. Even the most successful people in the world have failed. And the only difference between them and us is they tried again. We didn't. So that's why I say the only time you really fail is when you stop trying.
Right.
So we're wrapping up the end of talking about changes and overcoming them. So here are just a couple of final thoughts and some steps. So like I just said, we've all experienced failure and have struggled to overcome change multiple times in our lives. Think about your week or maybe last week. How many challenges did you overcome? How many things didn't go your way? How many changes did you have to make? And did you survive? If you're here listening, you did survive last week. It was hard, but you did it.
Yeah.
And again, think about how many times have you failed today? How many times have you had to change your plans for the day? It's normal. These difficulties have made us better and more capable humans. Again, regardless of ability, changes and failures are going to happen. And it's important to understand how to navigate these changes. Everyone's going to need different supports. Everyone's going to need a different plan. Everyone's going to tackle a plan a little bit differently, and that's okay. Everyone has a different approach where everyone has a right to try again and again and again and again, forever and ever, until they successfully make that change. It's okay if you fail. Well, it's okay if you take a break.
And it's important to note that might feel a little bit like Groundhog Day, but that's in your control to make those changes, to make something succeed. And keep in mind, this is kind of something fun I heard a long time ago. Instructions for whatever it is that you're doing are one person's way of doing things.
Yes.
And if it's not working and you're doing everything right, then something has to change, or else it's just going to continue. That's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome or something like, but the way that a lot of the families that we see could benefit from this particular topic is that, you know, we were talking about it before we started the recording, but, you know, when is the best time to bite the bullet? And that's going to look different for everyone. Like, you almost have to hit, you don't want to have to hit rock bottom before you make a change. Maybe you try a few changes and just nothing is working and it's just exacerbated. And then you took a break and now you're having to get back into making some changes again. And it is daunting and it is exhausting and may or may not work, which stinks. Like, you want to know what the outcome is before you're going to do it. Like, you buy a size 10 shoe, you want it to fit, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful part of life. You know, you can say a beautiful nightmare sometimes or a disaster. But you got to keep changing because, again, you're just going to stay still and nothing will change. And so if you were still in diapers, and there are a lot of adults that are, adult children with autism who we see and who are often, you know, they're all throughout the world. But that same type thought, you know, what happens if you never learn how to fully wash your body or your hair or brush your teeth and then you get dental problems? You know, and then it comes down to if you never understand how to have a greeting, and then you're never going to have a friend. Like, and living on your own. I mean, it's just, it is a mountain, but picking one thing at a time and then just figuring out that one thing. And then, like you were saying, building on those steps by steps by steps. So,
yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we were also talking about, besides when you make those changes, is how long does it take for that change to happen? And again, it's very individual. I may learn a skill in X amount of time. Lindsay may learn that skill in Y amount of time. Whoever's listening may learn that in Z amount of time. It's all different. It's based on a lot of factors besides, okay, we both started learning how to speak French today. Who's going to be fully fluent in French first? It's going to depend. Who studies more? Who has less stress in their life? Who has a best friend who speaks French and they can practice with them all day, every day? Those factors are going to directly impact who learned French first.
I can't stand the classic comparisons that people do with the development of the brain. Like, it's about so different.
Yes, and that's the beautiful and the challenging part about being a human or being a human with autism. It's so individual because there's so many factors in play that we don't think about. And so, no, there is no answer.
And that's why it can be very difficult to do a blanket
Mhm.
program
Yeah.
because you want to do it, but if you had 5 individuals in there that are neurotypical, they
Mhm.
are more easily able to adapt to
Yeah.
learn something from that program or get something
Mhm.
from it. But when
Yeah.
you have the same amount of people, but who are all on the autism spectrum,
Mhm.
you have to do that program almost 5 different ways, completely different ways for those
Mhm.
individuals to get something out of it. And is it worth it? Absolutely. Is it
Yes.
feasible? Yes, it is. You have to be
Mhm.
able to tailor the program to an individual.
Mhm.
So that's where classrooms, that's where they go into smaller sizes because you have to be able to modify IEPs. But
Mhm.
a program you can, as long as everyone's working towards the same goal, those modifications can be made with the
Mhm.
passing of the teacher or the presenter or the speaker,
Yeah.
whoever it is. And
Mhm.
those are things that if the parents and or like DSPs or behavior techs, that's what they're there for.
Mhm.
So these individuals may not understand how to do it, advocate for themselves. But that's why we're here doing what we're doing now so that we can help our kids advocate and, as caregivers or service providers and just that little extra push to
Mhm.
help everyone get to where they need to be.
Yeah, and even though this is my field and I've been working in the field for 5 years, I still don't have any blanket statements for any of my clients that I've worked with. It's
Right?
all individual. I sit with them, I talk to them, I figure out their life story, figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and take all that information to come up with a plan for them and with them. And what I do for person A is going to be completely different than person B because they're completely different people with different experiences, different things that work for them, different things that don't work for them. So
Yeah.
every day, even though I'm a professional in this field, I don't have an answer. It
Right.
depends scenario by scenario, day by day, client by client. And so that's
Heaven
why yeah. And so that's why
heaven
when someone
forbid.
asks,
Oh, go ahead, Brooke. I'm sorry, I keep
sorry,
interrupting.
you're okay. So that's why whenever someone asks me, "What is the timeline?" I can't tell you, and I will never tell you because there's too much that goes into that answer, and it's going to depend on the client. It's going to depend on the family dynamic. It's going to depend on the weather. It's going to depend on scheduling. There's way too much to take into account for me to give you an answer. But if you do want more specific, tailored answers, reach out. Let's talk about what's going on in your life, in your client's life, or your child's life, and let's see what we can talk about and maybe come up with a plan.
It's very important to continue to reach out if one avenue isn't working. It's
Mhm.
just, there's a ton of different, ways to get in touch with people and
Mhm.
also just to hear different ideas. And I get so many great things from so many different people and you just don't
Mhm.
expect it. But
Yeah.
every day is so different. Imagine, for my kiddo, it was heaven forbid he had to go to the bathroom, but he
Mhm.
doesn't know to stop what he's doing to say, I have to go to the bathroom.
Mhm.
And, or like if he may not be feeling good, and I'm like, you need to just go do something. Like go to the bathroom real quick and then come back.
Mhm.
And 9 out of 10 times that's do you need a drink of water
Mhm.
to reset whatever is going on for him.
Mhm.
And that takes his mind off of it, gives him that little break that you were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
And you try again. And for
Yeah.
him, it's a big script for him. He was like, did I fail? Did I fail?
Mhm.
So we're currently going through different ways. He's to say, this is not a failure. This is one attempt. Or
Mhm.
yes, you did fail, but we can try again because that's what we're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Um, but he's caught up in a script somehow, and I haven't found it yet where he got it from. Um,
Mhm.
but it's all about failure. So we got to turn that negative into a positive and say we can try
Mhm.
again. So
Mhm.
it again, tomorrow it's going to be different. Today it was different from yesterday. So
Mhm.
every day we're hustling, right?
Yeah. Every day is going to be different, and that's why it's hard to give you a specific plan because you're going to have to tailor that plan every single day. It's no different than if we try to eat healthier. That plan's going to look different every single day.
Right.
But the important part is that you're trying to come up with a plan, you're taking your failures as learning opportunities to come up with a better plan, and you don't give up. It's fine if you take a break. It is fine if you take an extended break, but come back to the problem and see if you can find a solution. See if you can find free resources to help you overcome that problem. See if you're able to get services or needed supports that can help walk you through your problem and try to help you figure out a solution to it. But either way, try. See what's out there, see what's readily available, and start trying. It's okay if you fail. That's the whole point of this presentation is try, fail, try again. Eventually you will succeed. And that's what we're working towards.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And it's right here. Thank you so very much. It's amazing.
Of course, I hope
Um,
everyone enjoyed it.
yeah, I've had to move locations within the house here a few times, and I'm trying to get back here on the where I could stop sharing.
Okay.
Um, I am a hot mess up in here. Let's see. There we go. So, and yes, it is dark in here now.
That's all
Um,
right.
it's so funny how we started in one area and then we go to another, and it's like, hey,
Life is
so
complicated. Your plan changed.
yes, it did. So there we go. So, no, thank you again so much, and we have another
Mhm.
one coming up very soon. So this will be
Mhm.
on our YouTube and on our Facebook and website. So you can share it with anyone who you think would get something out of it, and you can always ask questions, and Brooke will get back
Mhm.
to you as soon as we get them to her, or you can contact her directly.
Yep.
And this will all be linked, and there you have it. Another wonderful little thing. So much. There's so much always going on. So,
Always.
but biting the bullet and keep going. That's part
Mhm.
of it, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Keep going.
all righty. Well, thank you so much, and we will
Of
see
course.
you soon. All right.
Alrighty.
We're
Bye,
gonna stop
everyone.
recording. Bye.